guy he represents.
Oh, God, yeah, Junior. Junior's around. Yeah.
What's his background?
Oh, mate, he's off there. Off there in that syndicate. So, made a bit of money out of it.
Hello. Testing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the final Crypto Mondays London event of 2025. Well, I don't know about you guys. I'm tired. Thank you guys all so much for being here. As always, what we do wouldn't exist if we didn't have the community here to attend the event. And speaking of that, I would love to can I get the whole team on stage? Larry, can you grab everybody? Can I get Ade? Can I get Matt? Can I get Larry? Can I get me Neve?
Can we 7 years ago?
Who else is here? Where's Rohit? Rohit, get up. Up, let's go. Team, let's go. Guys, can I just get a huge round of applause for the team? Because they're all volunteers. Everybody gives their time, really, really generously to help run these events, and we couldn't do it without all of you guys. So thank you guys all very much. And Larry, my co-founder, who hides from the stage, but curious. He does exist.
Caitlin, my co-founder, who doesn't hide.
It does exist.
It does exist, quite rightly.
Did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
He's off. Okay. Also, of course, to our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. They're the ones who host us in this beautiful venue. Thank you, Reed Smith, and Beach Hut, OVH Cloud, Vault 12, Kudos, and Bondex, who are here doing an activation. So if you've not gotten a headshot, I really recommend visiting after the talk and going to get a headshot. So yeah, our sponsors make this all possible. We are a nonprofit, so huge amount of gratitude to them. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Jess, who will be your moderator for today. And Jess, I'll have you introduce the rest of the panel, and let's get going.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Caitlin and all the team to organize this every month. It's very useful and very important for all the crypto community in London, so thank you for that. 2025 has been quite a year, honestly. We saw different changes in the industry. We saw the rise of AI and the cross, basically, we say the rise of AI. We saw RWA tokenization that now is growing. We saw new institutional players joining us, and we also saw the Bitcoin ecosystem changing a lot and growing. But we're not only speaking about what happened this year tonight. We are also speaking about what is going to be next, what's going to be in 2026. And tonight we have an amazing panel with industry leaders and that can help us understanding more about that. So please, can you help me introducing us our panel? And sorry guys. Sorry guys. So if you can help me
Clap your hands.
clap your hands.
Yeah.
So, before we start with the discussion, I'd like you to take like 30 seconds to introduce yourself and tell us which is your biggest takeaway from 2025. Lex, you can start, please.
Just make sure your mics are switched off.
Testing. Can you hear me? Fantastic. Well, it's wonderful and humbling to be here at the end of the last year in which humans will control the earth before the AI grinds you to dust and shoots you into the moon. My name's Lex, and I'm a co-founder of a fund called Generative Ventures. We invest in DeFi, DePIN, and crypto AI. The machine economy is kind of our core thesis. My takeaway from last year is it's been kind of a fucking grind, hasn't it? Unless you've been holding Bitcoin. I mean, you can spell it however you want. I'm not going to insist. It's been a difficult year. It's been a difficult year to be a builder, to be an investor, to not be a criminal. And so whoever raise your hands if you haven't done any crimes. Congratulations. So I'm off to a good start. So I'll.
We're all criminals.
How do I follow that? I'm Stephanie Ramazan. I'm founder and CEO of the Crypto Collective. We are a consultancy that focuses purely on institutional crypto, which is very niche, but also very broad. We work with funds, family offices, asset managers coming into the space. We work with crypto native companies, helping them through growth and strategy. I have a co-founder, a wonderful lady called Lauren Shepson, who's not here, and she heads up our marketing, PR, and communications function. I slightly disagree with what you just said. Not the robots bit, 100% agree with that. But it's been a grind, but there's been some proof points that show that, you know, we're not crazy. And all these people in this room and everyone on this panel, their grit, determination, not giving up, realizing that, okay, there's something bigger here. We're going to keep going no matter how painful it is. You know, the proof point was in, for example, the digital asset treasuries, where billions of dollars flew in from all these naysayers and big institutions, and Bitcoin is shit and we're not going to touch it and it's all a Ponzi scheme. Oh, but you've been given a different access point and you're all piling in. So it's not about the asset class, it's about access, it's about infrastructure, it's about frameworks, it's about policies, it's about regulation, and all of these things have massively come along this year. And so I think 2025 has really set the foundation for institutional adoption for 26, something I've been harping on about for about 7 years. Told I was crazy. I'm still told I'm crazy, but maybe not purely just because I believe in crypto.
I'm Yago. I've been working and building in Bitcoin for the last 15 years. I think it's been a phenomenal year, fantastic year. I think right now, for me personally, it's been a fantastic year. For the last 15 years, I've been working towards bringing greater functionality, scalability, programmability, and privacy to Bitcoin. 5 years ago, we started publishing papers on bringing zero knowledge proofs and through that programmability to Bitcoin. And this year we've started to roll out the first operating system for full programmability on Bitcoin. But that's sort of my personal journey, and I think that's going to have a huge impact going forward. But I think for everyone who's interested in crypto, this has been a phenomenal year. It's been a year which separated the wheat from the chaff, where we've seen sort of the death of narratives and the beginning of the real. We've seen significant adoption. The real mass adoption in crypto is not the mass adoption of millions of people. It's the adoption by billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. We've definitely seen that this year. And perhaps the most important thing, anyone who's been involved in this industry, has been working in this industry, we've been working in North Korea or Russia or Iran, right? I mean, the United States government and all of the other governments in the world had sanctions on North Korea, Russia, Iran, and crypto. And this was the first year where they dropped the sanctions, not just dropped the sanctions, but entirely embraced our industry. And so I think not only was it a phenomenal year, a year of building fundamentals, but I think we're setting the stage here for a flourishing unlike anything we've seen before.
Very good start, I would say. So Lex, since this is the last year, we're gonna be autonomous in deciding our own future, let's say. And there is this trend that is AI agents and robots in general integrating with DeFi in particular, or overall like with decentralization. What do you think did work this year, and what would you like to see in the next year?
Sure. It is really interesting to hear the different perspectives, and I wonder, my guess is that we don't actually disagree on anything that happened. I think we all see the same things as to what happened. But I think it's what we do with what's happened is really important. And I think we are way past the cheerleading stage of this industry. One interesting fact is the total market cap of all UK publicly traded companies is 3.5 trillion USD. 10 years ago, the total market cap of all UK publicly traded companies was 3.5 trillion USD. Nothing has happened in this country for 10 years. You would be better off selling all UK industry and putting it into treasuries as a trade. In that same time, crypto has created 3.5 trillion in value from a cost base of almost nothing. And a lot of that has been driven by hype and a desire to be important. But now we have this digital nation state that is here. And the role that I have now is, before I was a consensus and it was like an operator, we had a footprint, all this stuff. Now it's, as a venture investor, I'm trying to find this next generation of people who have to aim at something new, right? At finding targets for what's happening next and what can we build that's going to continue the run that we've had from 0 to 3.5, from 3.5 to 20, 30, 50 trillion, right? And I struggle because all of the ideas that we've had this year have been, this is probably where we disagree, a lot of them have been value destructive. So like, I'm a fan of DATs. All my friends have a DAT. DAT, I know, Lee,
That's not just for
DAT for you, DAT for me, right? And I'm not joking. I worked on a DAT. I know a few people here who are.
I've got a really big one.
You've got a really important
Wow.
DAT, for the UK.
Deep in. No,
Yeah.
different.
Okay.
We're talking.
I don't know. It's for later.
Uh-huh.
So, at the same time, probably 50% of the capital that investors put into DATs this year, which is billions and billions of dollars, have been completely burnt out and evaporated and just gone. And people, crypto traded that into zero, basically. They traded the pop, sold off. The DATs are, half of them don't have sustainable economics. So yes, we can celebrate the ICO and the token launch, but we should also feel guilty and shitty for the fact that these need to be long-term fundamental businesses and companies that are there to sustain us. Anyway, I know I'm not answering your question at all. In terms of what I think is happening to kind of position us for the future, the most fundamental thing that's happened is that fintechs are adopting stablecoins, and that's an obvious thing that I think we can all see. That's where we're going to see a huge amount of traction in terms of Stripe. One of the things that's been challenging for us as a venture investor is we have this bet on kind of robot money, where AIs are going to do economic activity and financial systems for that are going to come from crypto. Fun fact, they're actually just going to come from Stripe. So that's been one surprise for us this year, is that Stripe plus OpenAI have moved very heavily into agentic payments, agentic commerce, building vertically into their own chain, right? Saying no thank you to Solana, Bitcoin, or Ethereum. Thank you for the technology. EVM's great. We'll also take all of your researchers from the foundation, raise $500 million and compete with you. Coinbase is another example. So Coinbase has launched X402, which is an agentic payments protocol. Super, super cool. I think Anthropic and Google and Coinbase are kind of creating a competitor to Stripe and OpenAI and agentic payments. Really interesting as well. Something we're paying attention to, but very hard for a startup, right? Like what value do you get if you're fighting Stripe and Coinbase on a market that hasn't happened yet? But I think that's the direction that we are most excited about.
Amazing, thank you. Regarding this building of fundamentals and real value, Iago, how do you think the Bitcoin ecosystem is placed in there? They're pushing a lot, growing an ecosystem now, and also this end of 4-year cycle, it didn't really look like a cycle. So which is your takeaway from this 2025? And what can we expect from 2026?
Yeah, so I think sometimes things are both simpler and less obvious than we often make them out to be. I actually think agentic payments is a good example. So everyone has this intuition that crypto is digital money, AI is digital intelligence, and therefore AIs are going to want to transact in crypto. And I think that that is directionally correct, but I think it's the wrong story. And I think it's the wrong story in a couple of ways. And I think that I'll describe this quickly, but I think it can illuminate other things. So one thing, if you look at the history of Bitcoin, if you look at the history of crypto, the reality is that we're now sort of closing the second chapter, right? The first 5 years were the cypherpunk years. The next 10 years were the hype and narrative, and we're now closing sort of that sort of retail speculative chapter, and we're moving into building the fundamentals where it's no longer ideology, it's about the utility of stablecoins, the utility of Bitcoin, and to a lesser degree the utility of smart contracts and DeFi. You're going to see the same thing happen in AI. While AI is, has gone through the first 5 years of it being sort of a researcher's playground, we're now in the beginning stages of 10 years of hype. But it's going to take a long time before we actually see sort of this hype turn into reality. Even though it feels like it's tomorrow, we will all have robot lords or robot slaves. Unfortunately, tomorrow we're going to be doing, changing nappies or going to work.
Do you not already have robot slaves?
I don't.
I feel like we all.
Yeah.
That's awkward.
I sorry. This chair is taking me for a ride.
It's a robot.
But perhaps the other part of it is we keep on looking for a really complicated story of how crypto is going to be important in our world, right? And so we've got AI, and then eventually we're going to have agents, and then these agents, they're going to want to transact, and they're going to transact on crypto, and then we're going to build systems like specifically designed for agentic systems. I don't think that's how this plays out. I think, however, that AI and crypto, specifically Bitcoin, are actually wedded at the hip, but not in the way that most people are thinking, in a much simpler but perhaps less obvious way, which is that AI, as it develops, as it is adopted, creates massive value, right? It is going to make even the most difficult and scarce thing, intelligence, commonplace and cheap. And so when you have a world where the bottlenecks are removed one after the other, right? When everything becomes commoditized, only that which is by design scarce can accrue value. And so the ultimate sort of net where all of this value is going to be created via AI, in my view, is not the AI companies that are being commoditized and have massive capex. They're not tech companies anymore. They're sort of like data farm companies. They're energy companies. It's not even the applications, because the applications are being commoditized as well. It comes down to Bitcoin. So I actually think that Bitcoin is the AI play. So and I think if you try to examine things from first principles in this way, you can see the same thing happening going into the future. So back to your question, right? Where do I think this is going more broadly? I think the story is simple. The story is that that the world is waking up to what we have all seen over the last 5 or 10 years, which is that we cannot trust our governments. We cannot trust our central banks. We cannot trust fiat. We have this idea now becoming the debasement trade, right? There's no way to stop it, because the democratic system is such that if you want to get elected, you have to offer gifts or tokens, right? And so you can't vote your way into lower debt. You can only vote your way into higher debt. And so these assets are going to continue to be valuable. And they're going to continue to be adopted by sovereigns, by corporates, by high net worth individuals. The volatility in Bitcoin is going to become lower. the desire to build financial systems on Bitcoin is going to get higher, and we're going to continue to move into phase 3, which is the next 10 years, which is building a new financial system which cannot be debased on Bitcoin. And so, in my view, the story is simple. Nothing has changed, and everything's great.
After that, I have a question for you all around all these topics. I only want to highlight something before, since we are speaking a lot about institution, governments, and these type of topics. I was at the WTO in September, and there was a big focus around real-world asset tokenization, like a way for institutional investors to invest in different countries, in particular emerging countries, and to attract overall more investments. Stephanie, which is the status is right now, and what we are going to expect?
That's like a whole other panel for an entire day, so I'll try and condense it. I think RWA in general will do for emerging markets kind of what mobile did for payments. It's going to be an absolute sort of revolution when we're talking about sort of the macro level. But just sort of pulling back a bit and zooming in to what we've already talked about. It's very interesting how sort of the AI energy crypto spaces are very much converging. And in this sort of AI data center boom that we're now in, a lot of people are not thinking because it doesn't even occur to them. So, where are we going to get this energy from? This is, a really big problem. And clean energy has been an issue for many, many years. I've been working on an incredibly interesting project over the last year, which has tokenized physical uranium. And I've really gone down the rabbit hole in terms of clean energy and what that means. But it was interesting that the business picked uranium as the first commodity to tokenize. And for me, it was really just the perfect use case for RWA. There's been tokenization for the sake of tokenization for many years. Absolutely 0 point projects have crashed and burned. No one has adopted. No one has even invested in these projects. But what is the point of RWA tokenization? Giving access to an asset class that is either very difficult to access, a lot of friction, very expensive. I had a conversation out just before the panel with an interesting gentleman who said, but tokenization is only for retail. I absolutely disagree. It has its place for retail, but it also has its place for institutions. And that's what we're proving with this uranium product. Some of the most interested parties have been energy companies, hedge funds, family offices who are already trading commodities, know what it costs to trade commodities, know that if they want to trade physical uranium and just go straight spot, it's going to cost them minimum ticket of $5 million. Maybe one day they only want to trade $1, $2, $3 million. So tokenization is bringing down that barrier to entry of the actual minimum ticket. It's taking away friction. It's giving transparency to pricing. There's real-time pricing. You can borrow against your uranium, which is collateralized, and you've got 24/7 trading. These kind of use cases of RWA where there's a real obvious point to it and it's making things better, that's where I think we're really going to see the world going next year, and it will be for institutions, big institutions, just as much as it is for retail.
Thank you. This question is for all of you. We are seeing these new layers, like we have AI, we have this new institution coming in a more serious way, and that are also adding new layers. That could be like regulation, that is also the technology layer. So do we see these as an upgrade, let's say, for our monetary freedom as individuals and also as individuals basically, or we see we have this new layer where we are basically becoming exactly like banks and as the system was before?
I think my fellow panelists are probably better placed to answer this question. But just from my perspective, it just comes down to who writes the rules and who owns the rails. So it could go either way, but I'll let my panelists elaborate on that.
What do you mean by the question? Are we individually more sovereign and can do more stuff, or?
Yes. Do you think we are more free to do everything with this new technology, or they're stopping us in some ways?
Which way?
Because of course we have new regulations, we have like institutional player coming in right now, and also this layer of AI. Of course, it's creating a new layer.
How many of you are ChatGPT users or like?
Yeah, I hope.
Okay. How many of you use it more than once a day? Okay. How many of you use it more than 5 times a day? More than 10 times a day? Okay. How many of you have discovered a novel theory with ChatGPT that no one else knows, but you know is right? So this is a really interesting thing about AI for me is that in the beginning, it definitely is like an extension of what it is that you're doing and so on. And then it becomes this validation machine. And then if you go deep enough into it and you don't guardrail it, it becomes a psychosis machine. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the internet about how, people start having these grandiose visions. And if you have like mental illness and you continue to use AI, it like amplifies and validates your mental illness. That's not something to laugh at.
Sounded like
No. Like I'm gonna try that out tonight. I think it's I can already feel it when I use it that there's this pull of like, oh yeah, my ideas are all making more and more sense to me. Like they're all interconnected.
It compliments you more than anyone else. Every time I ask Grace, that's a great question, Sam. It's so insightful. No one else does something like that.
but in a really soft voice.
Yeah, but I think on that it really depends how you train your AI. And
Yeah, it definitely does. But I think that I think I'm an aware user, but then I already see how it's like it's taking the whole mental model and just like validating. It's not at the end. It's just pulling things together in a way that fits me. And I can, if I was a schizophrenic, I'd be like, that's great. Everything's really making sense. And it's kind of the same way that like what you realize, it's 2000. I don't know, it was 2002 or 2004 for me when like I got on Facebook, and in the beginning it's like, oh, that's cool, I can stalk people from my class. And then 10 years later, you're checking Facebook like 50 times a day, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and all of a sudden you're realizing you're in this like chemical loop that is beyond you. And I think, how many of you trade perpetuals, DeFi, or do any DeFi trading? How many want to stop? Again, don't laugh. It's sad.
True.
I think that to your question, like we have more tools to empower us than ever before, right? For the person that wants to be private, self-sovereign, you can live completely off the grid. You can attach a MasterCard to your MetaMask account, all of these things. But at the same time, our interfaces to machines and devices have never been more powerful and more addictive. And I can definitely feel myself slipping into them in this invisible way. And I think to the point about I think the human animal is evolving in a really fast way, in a very fast way, in a way that we don't know how to control for. I think it's profoundly altering our behaviors. And then as a result of that, in the aggregate, it's profoundly altering the social contract that we expect from each other. Making the explicit bet on, I'm going to incorrectly characterize what you said, right? But where the best investment is to hedge the collapse of everything rather than work on figuring out how to build new financial and economic systems for it. Rather, the way to deal with it is to buy something that hedges when everything falls apart. So I am concerned about this kind of transformation internally that we're all going through, but I think that's a second order effect.
I'm going to continue from where you left off. I'm even going to adopt your strategy a little bit. Who here has read The Sovereign Individual? That's far too few hands. So The Sovereign Individual is a book that was written at the end of the 90s, and it is one of the most prophetic books you will ever read. If you read it today, it will explain the world. It was written in the 90s, but it will explain to you much of the world that you're experiencing around you. The central thesis of the book, written by two Brits, is that we are moving into a world where technology is empowering both individuals and governments, individuals and institutions. And as a result, sort of what we're seeing now, everyone's talking about the K-shaped economy, is a reflection of a deeper thing which is happening, which is that we have a K-shaped society. The tools that are empowering to individuals, for a certain set of individuals, those who have initiative, the intelligence, the wherewithal to take advantage of them, are empowered far beyond any individuals who have really ever come before. But for the rest, these tools are tools of surveillance, tools of psychosis, tools of
I don't like that you pointed at me. At first, I was like, yes, I'm an individual. I agree with you. And then it was this
I point to you merely because you raised the point, right? So and it's not just AI, of course. It's crypto. Look how many people, crypto, most of it, right? When we talk about crypto, we're talking about the world's most perfect casino. It's 24/7. It's global. It's P2P, right? So you also get to feel like you've beaten someone. And the worst part about it, right? Besides the flashing lights and the fact that it's ongoing and accessible from your phone at all times, is that it gets to make you feel like you're actually smart, right? Oh, I figured out this narrative. I listened to the right influencer. I watched the right YouTube thing. I did my own research, right? DYOR, right? Do your own research, all that nonsense, right? And that is an extremely addictive feeling. It's addictive when you win, but it's even worse when you lose because it's all on you. And now, you need to resurrect your ego. And so these are all very, very dangerous tools, potentially. I think, as a father now, one of the things that I need to figure out is how can we guide our kids? How can I guide my kids in a world where the possibility to get lost, it's never been so easy to get lost in society, but the possibility of, if you're able to make your own way, to make your way in such a way that you can live wherever you want, pay no taxes, have access to all the world's information, and swipe right, has never been better. And so I think we are in an age of personal responsibility where the burden on us as individuals is huge, the rewards are massive, and the filament, the social filament, everything from education to the kinds of nonsense that our influencers are selling us, are woefully inadequate to allow us to pass the challenge. So to your answer, are institution, to your question, sorry, are institutions coming on board good? For most people, no. But for the few of us who are able to use them as ways that we can exit the system and go wherever we want, right? The fact that BlackRock, right, will now take my Bitcoin is amazing. It's very empowering, right? But for most people, it's a trap. The AI, I am very worried about the fact that for most people, it's going to be a trap, just like TV was, just like cell phones were. So I think as our technologies become more powerful, we have to become more powerful with them as well.
Thank you. Since now we are in a new AI panel, more on post-pandemic situation and things, I'm gonna keep going with that. By 2030, we're expecting to have roughly 29 billion IoT devices. And this is gonna keep growing, IoT, Internet of Things, connected. So that can drive, literally check all our behavior, what's gonna happen, and drive also our decisions. But blockchain can put a layer of transparency and traceability on that. And this is a massive opportunity, of course, because the market is growing and we need to go on with that in some way. So how do you think this can happen? Lex, you can start and you can join.
I'll be honest, I can't be funny anymore. I've used it up. So
29 billion out.
yeah, it's hard. So one of the themes we've been trying to invest in is around decentralized physical infrastructure networks, and now we're looking at robotics, and in part because we're constantly trying to find the frontier. And we were aiming at crypto AI 3 years ago, and I think it's been there are some things that are novel and good that's come out of that. I think virtuals is super interesting as a capital formation system for AI agents. I think decentralized GPU at the edges has been productive in some places. But in general, most of crypto AI has been putting sort of like AI clothes on a meme token and then stealing people's money effectively. Because people want to believe in the future, and they do. And then it's like, oh, you're on radium. I was holding that one back. But it's true. It's don't invest there. And I think what's going on now in the AI market and the robotics market is really dangerous to the rest of the economy, going back to the Bitcoin trade, because AI companies have gotten to really outsized valuations that a normal investor could not underwrite. You can only underwrite them if you have like nation state logic. Let's say you have a company that makes $5 billion, and then you say that's going to be worth $600 billion in evaluation, and we're going to put $1 trillion into the ground for data centers. That's not sort of like natural investor logic. That's like industrial logic at a country-size scale. And we're going to kind of run out of fumes for revenue. Now, AI companies have there's probably 20 billion of revenue-ish, maybe 30 billion of revenue in the AI industry, which is, I think, 30 billion more revenue than we have in crypto. Well, okay, give it a try. But we are going to run out, and so the next thing that's sort of being put into this like industrial policy investment thesis is robotics. So you've got Figure, Tesla, Apptronics, Unitree. There's like a whole ton of manufacturing capacity aimed at now robotics, and you also have this competition between the US and China, a little bit of Europe, but largely US and China to compete for robotics. And then that sort of existential thing is being used to justify the data center build-outs, right? So like when you've got the robots, it's not just you're generating some words. You need like to render all video everywhere all the time. And when you're rendering that video, you're creating world models for robots and so on. And so your demand for GPU and computation goes infinite. And so the thing about this story that's dangerous is not that it's not true, because it is happening. It's totally real and it is there. What's dangerous about it is the valuation runaway. And so if that starts to crack, that is completely going to come back to crypto and make it very difficult. But I think our challenge now as an industry is, if we know that's where everything is going, how do we not fail ourselves in the way that we failed ourselves during the AI boom by selling a bunch of shit coins to people? But instead find the right place in this robotics industry play where we can add value. So can we crowdsource the world models? Does it matter to have provenance for images, for location? We've had a decade of really cool deep-in projects that have failed to get to traction, but I think we're probably at the precipice of these things potentially being commercial.
Thank you. Stephanie, do you want to expand a little bit more on the AI data center, probably, and how investors are approaching it?
So I'm sort of very
If we can put some-
very much on the periphery of this. Won't have much sort of value to add there, but I would just say sort of what we're looking at in terms of clients that I'm working on, the sort of AI data center uranium project. It's more about sort of just people waking up to the fact that there's just not enough energy, and things are going to have to fundamentally change to be able to meet this demand. I mean, already last year in 2024, I think the supply was somewhere about 150 million pounds of uranium. Demand was 200. And that's before we started really scratching the surface where we are now in terms of that global energy demand. So I think that we're going to, like you say, it's that potential price crash that can come from cracks in just fundamental infrastructure that isn't there. So the business model may be superb, everything is working, the programs are there, etc. The technology is there. But if there is suddenly some sort of black swan event within the energy space, just because we cannot mine enough any type of energy, whether that's wind, whether that's solar, whether that's uranium, etc., then I think we're going to be in big trouble. So I think it's about coming back to the fundamentals of energy demand and making sure that these businesses are also setting themselves up. How are they hedging their exposure? How are they getting their supply? Because how are they pricing in that risk? Is going to be very important. I think that's a piece of the puzzle that does seem to be left out when I'm speaking to some of these startups in the space. They're completely oblivious to energy prices and the next 10 years and what that could mean for the fundamentals of their business.
10 years ago, 5 years ago, I was saying to people, anyone who would listen, exactly what I'm going to say now. All deep-in projects will fail. And the reason they will fail is because they represent a fundamental misunderstanding of what we're doing here. People think that decentralization matters. It doesn't. Decentralization is a flaw. The only reason we have decentralization is because what it allows us to build is individual, localized ownership. I own my Bitcoin, you own your Bitcoin. I own my crypto, you own yours. But people have been talking about this industry as if it was an industry of decentralization. We all own shit together. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. And so where this touches with IoT and with AI is that the way that this plays out is that AI and crypto actually are going to merge. Where they will merge is in the absolute desire and demand for personal ownership. We are going to have children, an entire generation of children, grow up with AI companions. Right now, AIs are static, public good resources. My AI is the same as your AI. Maybe I pay for a slightly more expensive version of ChatGPT, but we're all using the same thing. But in a few years, my kid is going to start having a voice, which is going to live with him and observe everything that he does, and it's going to learn. AIs are going to start learning, building memories. And when that happens, there's going to be two kinds of people. Same K-shaped problem. There are going to be people who accept, your life companion by Google. And there are going to be people who will demand ownership of this new part of not just their brains, but their children's brains and their children's very soul and spirit. And at that point, when you need personal ownership, we're going to start seeing local AIs. We're going to start seeing personal ownership. So decentralization is a red herring in AI. It's a red herring in crypto. All right. What people want and what our entire industry is about is not about crypto. It's not about decentralization. It's not about blockchain. It's about ownership. We're the ownership industry.
Do you think your average person on the street really cares enough? The people in this room are kind of outliers, of course, and as you are, but the reality is if people are giving away all their data for free, and we talked about the psychosis and the addiction and the dopamine hits earlier, 99.9% of people cannot get switched off from their Instagram or their TikTok or whatever else. And so therefore that, to be independent and sovereign is less important to them than their current addiction, which is social media.
The idea of a middle class is a historic aberration. It's existed for 80 years and it's about to disappear. We've always lived in a world where the vast majority of people have been at the mercy of others, right? The strong will do what they can, the weak will suffer what they must. And so that sentence was true 2,000 years ago, and it's going to be true tomorrow. And so I agree with you, the vast majority of people are going to end up as digital serfs. The goal for the people in this room, and for everyone that you love and know, is for us to figure out how we don't.
Perfect. So I'm gonna do a last question. Can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we want to do Q&A, we're running out of time.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a very last question, and we can go with quick Q&A. And since we are in this mindset and vibe now, if you are Nostradamus and you want to make the most bold prediction for 2026 that no one is gonna believe, but you really believe in, what's gonna be? Very quick, because so we can answer question like 1 sentence. Who wants to start? Let's. You can start. I know you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been doing it. I don't think it's going to be a flashy year. You know, I think it's a very binary year. We're sitting on a bunch of black swan risks. You know, I think DATs, regardless of how much I love them, including strategy, are a black swan risk. I think AI valuations, and in particular, like the SPV structuring of secondaries for AI company interests and so on, I think huge black swan risk there. I think we have a bunch of political black swan risks, and so I'm concerned that we're going to have
Supposedly a black
a hard. Don't bring that into it. It's fine. It's okay.
You're just saying this push the price down, then you're going to go buy more.
I think that
Yeah.
I
Exactly. Stephanie, sorry, go.
the thing that I'm most looking forward to is when Bezos shoots the data centers into space. You know, I really love that part. That's my favorite part of the year. Is all these dudes are like, I know what to do. It's gonna shoot the data centers into space. So maybe
It's cold up there.
Yeah, it's cold.
Robots that can feel the temperature. It's fine.
Go for it, Stephanie. Sorry.
It's a giant dildo that flies.
It's no.
I agree with Lex. There's a lot of risk out there. I think we do need to come to sort of that 2.0 strategy where there's actual fundamentals, real operating businesses. There will be some harm done, but hopefully, as we're seeing in the last year or two, recoveries are a lot faster, which is the important thing. It's not how hard you get hit; it's how many times you can keep getting hit and get back up again, as someone once said on a very popular movie. I'm the institutional sore thumb in the room, I guess, but I think next year it will be rocky, but equally we will see just a really big shift into the bigger institutional tier one. We'll see more RWA on chain, which will completely dwarf what we see in terms of DeFi loops and pools right now, and it would just add that layer of infrastructure that everyone needs, but they don't necessarily know they need. So we'll see some disruption for sure, but it won't be a smooth ride.
Thank you.
Long Bitcoin ecosystem and Bitcoin programmability, long privacy, long stablecoins, long tokenized funds, long institutional adoption. Short anything complicated.
Thank you.
Question, if you like the one questions.
Yeah, 1, 2 question.
Let's do it like that.
Thanks. Hi, my name's Jules. I'm an agricultural researcher. I invest in cryptos and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I guess I just wanted to ask about the question of redistribution, which of course is a provocative question. It comes up very seldom in the things I listen to. But just when I look around me in my personal life or in my work, I work in African countries. And so then this question about, okay, so it's great that I'm going to be, really wealthy at some point, that's great, woo-hoo. But I think that, the question about how we live in a society, it's a social fabric. So I think the question about how we move toward this being something that's good for everyone, just the question of, the people who are the early movers who are winning, that's great. But what about everyone else? I think it's a problematic question which doesn't get asked enough. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it. I mean, I could just say a couple more things. I heard 2 comments about this recently on podcasts, both very problematic in my opinion. Max Kaiser was interviewed about this, and well, he was talking, and then he was asked a question by a 9-year-old girl in El Salvador, and she said, "This all sounds really great, but what about me? You know, our family is very modest. You know, am I too late? What's going to happen?" And he said, "No, you're going to live in this new great world. It's all wonderful." And it's just like, geez, that's not good enough as an answer. And I heard another podcast where it was about XRP, and they were sort of imagining at some point, you know, with AI and jobs disappearing, that basically they would have a bunch of money and a lot of other people wouldn't, and how we'd have to sort of look out for others, which of course is very worthy and sweet natured, but it's kind of unsatisfactory. Like, what does that mean? So I guess I don't know if you have any thoughts about it, but it's just a problem in my mind.
I have some thoughts. I think it's very easy if you watch the news or if you're on X to think that things are getting worse. But we have been getting richer and richer, not just in the Western world, but everywhere, for 2 centuries now. Crime has been going down. The world is safer. You know, we're not that far. No, the world is 100% safer. The world is 100% safer. Look, you can walk from here through Spitalfields and Whitechapel, and you know, and the worst thing that will happen to you is you'll step in maybe some dog poop, right? If you tried to do this 100, 150 years ago, the likelihood that you'd make it to the other side would be very, very slim. You look too soft and inviting.
Man, you're a man also. Don't tell it.
The chance that she would make it is 0. But, you know, all of us would be a significantly greater threat. Life was shorter, more brutish. But there are 2 problems. I think everyone is going to get wealthier. As society gets wealthier, there's just going to be more surplus. There's going to be things like UBI, or we're going to keep providing that sort of bread and circuses is going to get easier and better for us to provide as a society. But I do think that the bigger challenge is, can you escape? Do you have literacy, right? Do you have the literacy of sovereignty that will allow you to escape the spiritual impoverishment, which we still haven't figured out any way to improve upon? I think we're improving the physical sort of material side of societies around the world, but spiritually, I see no distinct progress in any direction.
Thank you. Another one? Only one?
Thank you so much. Panel's been very, very informative, very much on different polarizations as well.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You only just arrived.
I know. I picked up the line straight away. Let me just ask a simple question to the panel. The question to the panel is, do you think your views are getting more polarized because you're not actually integrating with the rest of the community? You've got James Bowalter that does a lot of digital institutional work. You've got Caitlin that does so much work within the community. And we're such an infant community that your polarization, your views are not really corresponding to what the general trend is. So yes or no, do you think you're isolating yourself because of your views, or do you think you're open-minded and becoming more open because that's the way you develop? You don't develop by being isolated.
That's
I don't think I count in that question. I like I said, I'm sort of the institutional sort of misfit on the panel. That's I've
I'm
been
not just institution.
and so the world that I operate in, I am still working mostly with sort of the larger institutions, the regulated institutions. So I sort of see myself as that critical bridge that I agree with some of what you say. I don't agree with everything that you say, and so I guess I'm slowly trying to be that critical bridge, ushering people from one side to the other. But it doesn't mean everyone has to cross that bridge. It's finding ways to interpret and translate between the two, where we can end up somewhere sort of maybe in the middle, which is still better for everybody. I think in modern day society, extreme anything doesn't work, and so it's about finding ways to coexist, taking good bits of each part of ideologies and ideas, and finding a way forward.
May I meet you?
100%.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I've got to end the panel now, but let's give a big round of applause. Some people have to dash off, unfortunately. But if you want to grab any of the speakers after the fact, please do. Guys, also one final request before you all take off. Guys, you just want to grab a seat. Guys, if you could just please scan the QR code here and take our survey if you have a minute. It literally takes 1 minute, maybe 2, and it really helps us improve our events for you so we can make them better and cover topics that are important to you, get speakers in that you care about. So thank you so much. Also, there will be food here. Guys, there's a whole thing of mulled wine, and we have the Bondex activation taking place as well. So if you haven't gotten a headshot, please do go ahead. Thank you all so much for coming, and have a great year.
Sometimes we think ourselves actually